Hey guys, today we need to talk about how to solve a problem like this. It deals with unit rates and proportions. So we've got Josh fills his car with 7 gallons of gas. It cost him $12.75. How much will 15 gallons cost? So with the past lesson that we've worked on, you've been dealing with finding a unit rate and then multiplying it to find a new quantity. So one way that we would work that, we would use that with this problem and it would give us a really weird decimal. To get around that, I want you to make something called a proportion. So a proportion is something that has a fraction equal to another fraction. And it actually looks really similar to what you've been doing. Pearson does the same thing, except they use a table. Now, if I were to use a proportion for this problem, I'm still going to fill it out almost the same way I would fill out that table. So anytime you see a rate, so it'll relate two things to each other. We've got 7 gallons and that costs $12.75. So since those two things go together, that's going to be my first fraction. And notice we are labeling, so I'm writing gallons. I'm writing that dollar sign. You need to make sure you include those units. Now the next part, it should always give you another number to use. So we've got how much will 15 gallons cost? To use a proportion correctly, you have to make sure that your units are in the correct place. If I need to know 15 gallons, that means I need to put gallons across from each other. As long as you do that, it's okay if you put both of the gallons on the bottom and dollars on top. It will not matter as long as you keep your units across from each other. Now we're looking for this part right here. And this is where it gets a little bit different. Normally, with Pearson, we would find some number to multiply with 7 to get 15. But if you divide that, if you divide 15 by 7, see, you get this really bad decimal. And we don't want to round. So to get around that, I'm going to show you cross multiplication. And this is going to be the way that we generally solve proportions. And instead of a box, we're going to have a variable. So when you cross multiply, I like to circle. So I need to multiply 7 times x. That's just going to be 7x. You're just going to stick them together. Then your equal sign has to come down. And then you're going to cross multiply these two numbers. So 15 times 12.75. And there's the bell. You're going to get 191.25 cents. Now this does not mean that you're done. Okay? If you look right here, this is a one-step equation. You did get to see some of these in 6th grade, but just to review, 7 and x, they're being multiplied, okay? Multiplication is the only operation that can hide. They don't have to write that symbol. To get rid of multiplication by 7, I would have to divide by 7. And we already know on an equation, whatever you do on one side, you have to do to the other. So that's why I wrote it twice. 7 divided by 7 gives me 1, and I'm still left with an x. I could write 1x, or I could leave that 1 off and just write x. That's the same thing. Then my equal sign, it's going to come down again. And then I'm going to divide this. So 191.25 divided by 7. And look, we got another really bad decimal. But if I'm at the very end of my problem and I'm dealing with money, which I am, it's okay to round it now. You don't want to round earlier up in the problem because you want your answer to be as accurate as possible. Once you get to the end, if it's money, you are welcome to round, and you're going to need to round, to the nearest cent. Okay, so when we say the nearest cent, we've got $27. And then remember, money always has 2 places after the decimal. So I'm looking to have 32 And that 2, it's not going to round up because 1 will not round a 2 up. So it's 27, 27, I'm sorry, 32. So 15 gallons will cost $27.32. Okay, let's look at another one. This one I'm not going to give you a word problem. It's just going to be numbers because I want us to make sure that we understand how to cross multiply. If I gave you 5 over 17 equals, let's have 18 over x. Okay, this is another one that it's not a really pretty problem. Pearson would normally have you try to find a number to multiply with 5 to get to 18. For this one, you're not going to get a nice whole number. So if that's the case, I would go into cross multiplication. And it's going to be those same exact steps. So once again, I always start with the one that's going to have the variable in it. So 5 times x is 5x. And there's the bell again. Then I'm going to multiply 17 times 18. I'll set my calculator over here so you can see. 17 times 18 gives us 306. Now that's not your answer. X is not 306. 5 x's is worth 306. So to get rid of multiplication by 5, I would have to divide by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is just 1. So over here, I'm left with 1x, or just x. Then over here, I would go ahead and divide this. So 306 divided by 5 gives me 61.2. So whenever you end up working a problem and you find that a unit rate is giving you a really long decimal, and you'll know the ones that do not look very friendly, if it's filling up your whole calculator, it's not a decimal that you want to work with. If that's the case, bypass that by cross multiplying. Okay, you will not always get to multiply or divide by a nice number, so you'll have to cross multiply.